The bathroom reeked of vodka and blood, the two smells twining together in a sickly sweet cloud that clung to the back of my throat. My wrists stung, the cuts raw and jagged, the sticky warmth of blood trailing down my arms and pooling around me in slow, accusing circles. The linoleum beneath me was cold and unforgiving, pressing hard into my back as if it meant to hold me there, to keep me from drifting away. I had thought I would feel something. Relief. Peace. Maybe even regret. But all I felt was numb. The pills I'd swallowed were doing their work, dulling the edges of everything, my thoughts dissolving into haze. Somewhere in the recesses of my mind, a faint heartbeat echoed, a memory I couldn't let go of. Her heartbeat. The one I'd heard on the monitor only once before it fell silent forever. I closed my eyes, letting the weight of my body sink deeper into the floor. I didn't want to fight anymore. I just wanted it to be over. The air shifted. It was subtle at first, the kind of change you could almost ignore. The temperature in the room dropped, not sharply, but enough to raise the fine hairs on my arms. The sharp tang of blood seemed to lift, replaced by a dry, sterile chill that made the vodka burn sharper on my tongue. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't alone. The figure draped in black so deep it seemed to drink the dim light from the room. Its face, or what should have been its face, was a void, an absence that pulled at the edges of my vision.
My child.
What I heard wasn't a voice, but was a vibration, low and resonant, that settled deep in my chest. I couldn't form words, my body suddenly cold and too heavy to move. "No," I whispered, my voice cracking. "You're not real. You can't be." The figure tilted its head, a slow, deliberate motion, as though it were studying me.
"And yet, here I am."
I scrambled back, my hands slipping in the blood that pooled around me. My pulse was racing, though my body felt sluggish and disconnected. What do you want? My soul? My life? You're too late. I've already handled that. Its head tilted again, a motion that felt almost mocking.
"Handled it,"
it repeated, the words low and steady.
"Is that what you believe?"
I let out a bitter laugh, the sound cracking against the heavy silence. What else is there to believe? It's over. Done.
"No,"
it said, stepping forward. The shadows rippled around it like water disturbed by something unseen.
"It's unfinished."
What's that supposed to mean? I spat, the anger rising in my chest despite the numbness creeping through my veins. You think I haven't made my choice? Its void-like face seemed to shift toward me, though it had no features to follow.
"You've merely chosen escape, not resolution. But tell me, what are you running from?"
You know nothing about me. You don't know what I've been through.
"I know everything about you, my child,"
it said simply.
"I was with you that night you felt her slip away. I was there when the silence replaced her heartbeat, when the dreams you'd built with her crumbled into ash."
My throat tightened, the heat rising behind my eyes. Stop! You don't get to talk about her. You don't get to...
"And the day he left, when he turned his back on you, when he chose his grief over yours, when he left you to carry the weight of it all alone."
Shut up!
"I was there. In the silence that followed, in the ache you couldn't drown. No matter how many pills you swallowed, no matter how deep you cut."
The words hit me like a blow, my chest heaving as I tried to force air into my lungs. Why? Why are you here?
"I'm here to give you a choice, my child."
For what? I spat. To live? To keep going? To pretend there's anything left for me out there? The figure extended a shadowy hand toward me, the motion slow and deliberate.
"What if I told you there's more waiting for you? That you'll find what you thought you'd lost, and more.
I stared at the outstretched hand, my chest tightening. Why would you care? What do you get out of this?
Rest.
It said, its tone softer now.
And perhaps a reminder of what I've long forgotten.
I sat there, frozen, the room spinning around me, the weight of its words pressing against my chest like a lead blanket. My fingers twitched against the floor, sticky with blood, the ache in my arms dull and distant now. The void where its face should have been seemed to hold me in place, pinning me with the unspoken promise of something I couldn't yet see. Finally, it stepped back, its shadow receding toward the far corner of the room.
I'll leave you to decide,
it said, its voice fading into the stillness.
But choose wisely, my child. The world isn't as empty as it seems.
And then it was gone, leaving me alone with the blood, the silence, and the unbearable weight of a choice I couldn't ignore. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and faintly of lemon cleaner, the kind that tries too hard to mask something more bitter beneath it. The walls were too white, the air too sterile, but I felt it, a quiet, stubborn flicker of life beneath the surface of all that cold. For the first time in months, maybe years, I didn't feel heavy. I was still here. It was a strange thing to realize, how much I had taken for granted the simple act of waking up, of existing. The small things started to add up. Life didn't get better overnight, but it got better. I went back to school, enrolling in evening classes to finish the degree I'd abandoned when everything fell apart. I graduated 2 years later, my family and a few close friends cheering from the audience as I walked across the stage. The diploma felt heavier than I'd expected when they handed it to me, the weight of everything it represented settling in my hands. I'd done it. I'd survived. And I'd built something new. I met Michael again at the grocery store, of all places.
Amanda?
I turned, and there he was. His hair was a little longer, and there were faint lines at the corners of his eyes that hadn't been there before. He looked tired, but also softer. Michael? I said, the sound of his name strange in my mouth after all this time. He hesitated, his hands gripping the handle of his cart like it might steady him.
It's been a while,
he said, his voice quiet.
I didn't think I'd see you again.
Guess we both still need groceries. A faint smile tugged at the corners of his mouth, and for a moment, it was like no time had passed at all. But then his expression shifted, his brow furrowing.
I heard about what happened. I wanted to reach out, but I didn't know if you'd...
He stopped himself, shaking his head.
I didn't know what to say.
There wasn't much to say back then. Not from either of us.
Are you okay?
The question lingered, and for a moment I wasn't sure how to answer. But then I looked at him. Really looked at him, and the words came easier than I'd expected. I'm still here, I said simply. Our relationship didn't rebuild itself overnight. It started with small things. Coffee dates, late-night phone calls, walks in the park where we talked about everything and nothing. Michael was different than I remembered. He still carried the weight of what had happened, but he didn't shy away from it anymore. Neither did I. 2 years after that day in the grocery store, we got married. The ceremony was simple, just close friends and family. But it felt right. Life felt right. 4 years later, our twins were born. Emily and James were perfect from the moment I held them in my arms, their tiny fingers curling around mine like they never wanted to let go. Our house was full of laughter, of bedtime stories and sticky handprints on the walls, of lazy Saturday mornings and chaotic school day rushes. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever is. But it was ours. And it was good. The house was quiet, save for the soft hum of my laptop and the occasional creak of the floorboards settling under the weight of time. The twins had gone with Michael to their favorite ice cream shop, a tradition after Saturday soccer practice. The scent of their laughter and muddy cleats still lingered faintly in the air, mingling with the warm aroma of the coffee I'd barely touched. I leaned back in my chair, rubbing my temples as I stared at the glowing screen. The numbers blurred together, my focus slipping as my thoughts wandered to the weekend ahead. Emily wanted to bake cookies tomorrow. James had been begging to go to the new arcade downtown. Their voices played in my mind, bright and insistent, making me smile despite the spreadsheets. This was my life now. Messy, busy, but full. The girl I'd been in that blood-stained bathroom felt like a stranger. Even when life wasn't perfect, even when the shadows of the past crept in, I had reasons to keep going. I'd made that choice once, and I made it again every day. For them. For us. The clock on the wall ticked softly, marking the minutes. I glanced at it, noting the time. They should have been home by now. But then the ticking stopped. I froze, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. The silence was sudden, deafening in its absence, and it pressed against my ears like cotton stuffed into the world. I glanced at the clock, expecting to see the second hand jammed, but it hadn't moved at all, frozen at the edge of a moment. That's when I saw him. He stood in the corner of the room, his towering form swallowing the faint light spilling from my desk lamp. His edges blurred into the shadows, shifting and rippling like smoke caught in a breeze. The air around him was heavy, cold, seeping into my skin and settling in my chest. I couldn't see a face. There wasn't one, but the weight of his presence was more than enough.
My child.
My breath hitched. The world tilted violently, but I forced myself to stay standing. The air felt too thin, as though the room itself had shrunk around me. My voice cracked as I managed to ask, "Is it time? Have you come for me again?" Death tilted his head, his void-like face unreadable, but heavy with something I couldn't name. His shadow stretched further, dark tendrils rippling along the floor.
Not yet,
he said, cold and final. The answer should have been a relief, but it wasn't. My pulse thundered in my ears as my mind raced, trying to piece together why he was here. Then why?
You already know why.
No, you're lying. They're fine. They have to be.
You know they are not.
The words shattered something inside me. A sound escaped my throat, half sob, half scream, as I stumbled toward him, my hands trembling with fury and despair. "You bastard!" I spat, my voice raw and broken. "Why? Why them?"
Fate does not answer to why.
Don't give me that. You come in here, acting like you're some impartial observer, like you don't have a choice, but your death, you could have stopped this. I chose to live, I hissed, tears streaming down my face. I fought. I clawed my way out of that darkness because I believed. Because I thought there was something left for me. And now you've taken them all away. My legs gave out and I sank to the floor, my body racked with sobs. The words poured out of me, thick and heavy, drenched in fury and grief. First my baby, and now this? My children, my husband, my entire family.
And now they are gone,
he said simply, his tone devoid of cruelty yet unyielding.
Your choice, my child, is whether you follow them.
His words sent a fresh wave of anger surging through me, hot and electric. You don't get it! I already made that choice once. I clawed my way out of the darkness because I believed life could be better. And it was. For 12 years, it was everything I could have dreamed of. And now you're telling me it was all for nothing?
All wasn't for nothing. It was for them. For every moment you gave them, every memory you built, and now it is for you to decide what comes next.
What comes next? I laughed bitterly. You mean whether I should end it all again? Isn't that why you're here? To watch me end it?
No,
he said, stepping closer, his shadow stretching toward me like a living thing.
I am here to remind you that even in the depths of your rage, your despair, You have power. You can endure this pain, my child, and use it.
His words hung in the air, heavy and sharp. My breath caught as I realized what he was offering. What are you saying? I asked, though I already knew. His void-like face seemed to focus on me, the weight of his gaze pressing against my chest.
The man who took your family is dead, but his legacy lives on. His wife, his son, his daughter. Do you think they will mourn for you as you mourn for your family, or will they return to their lives untouched while you are left with nothing?
My pulse thundered in my ears as the meaning behind his words sank in.
This is your choice. You can let the pain consume you, swallow the pills once more, and leave this world to its chaos. Or you can turn the pain outward, balance the scales, make them understand what lost feels like.
I sank to the floor, my hands trembling as I buried my face in them. I can't, I whispered.
But you must, my child. The choice is yours, and yours alone. I am merely the witness.
I lifted my head, meeting the void where his eyes should have been. The rage, the sorrow, the unbearable weight of it all surged through me in a tidal wave. And yet beneath it, there was something else, a spark of cold clarity. I stood slowly, my legs unsteady, but holding firm. You want me to be like you, to take life, to carry that weight, and to make the world bleed like you have.
I don't want anything. I simply present what is.
I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest as I stared up at him. I choose, I said, my voice steady now, the weight of my decision solidifying in my chest.
What do you choose?
You already know. For the first time, I thought I saw the faintest hint of a smile in the shadows of his face, though it was gone as quickly as it came. He inclined his head slightly, his voice low and resonant.
Then so be it.